Quartet means four, you know. So how can you call this a quartet when there's only two people in here? Oh look, another Master System game getting some semblance of pinhole light around these parts, and is a vaguely interesting one, I guess. So much like our last subject, Bomber Raid, Quartet was one of those games that I first played off one of those PlayPal handheld gimmicks that had about 20 or so Master System games built into the system or something. Not the most spectacular piece of business, and it lasted about a few years before it went kaput eventually, but it was a nice way to experience some games I wouldn't have otherwise. So lo and behold, I eventually get a Master System to call my own, and one day a loose copy of Quartet at the flea market for dirt cheap. It's a game I have some familiarity with, would be nice to play this on a TV for once. Sold. Wouldn't touch this thing for several more years until, well, recently, I guess. Hence this video. Anyway, released in 1987 and based on an arcade title that allowed up to 4-player action, hence the name Quartet. Quartet on Master System scales things back to 2 players, making it a duet rather than a quartet, but whatever, that's semantics now. Player 1 controls Mary, the female, while Player 2 controls Edgar, the male. Either way, you're tasked with 6 different worlds to shoot through, downing alien scum, collecting treasures and helpful pickups, most notably the jetpack that lets you fly around the stage and makes things much easier to navigate until you take a hit, and eventually confronting the stage boss, defeating them for the key to the exit that lets you proceed to the next world, all in an effort to recover the Queen's casket and restore peace to the universe, or something. Back in the day, we didn't ask questions, we just accepted it and move on. So you move your hero with the directional pad, one button shoots, the other jumps. The button mapping's flipped, so I'm not happy about that, but anyway. You have a blaster that shoots left or right, and that's it. You start off with 10,000 points, which is essentially your hit points, and thus allow you to withstand a few blows before expiring, but each time you're hit, you're momentarily stunned. And you also drop like a fly, something you don't want to do from great heights or above a pit. Not only does these points serve as your health, but it's also a timer that goes down with each passing second that you're still loitering in this realm of disease and danger wrapped in gaudy bright colors and loud penetrating noises. Now good news is that once that hits 0, you're not automatically dead, you're just one hit away from being dead. Now you can kill some aliens and they'll drop crystals for points to your score, which is a completely different concept here. At times you'll come across other items like bombs for clearing the screen of enemies, clocks for temporarily freezing enemies in place, and potions that will either heal you or provide a brief period of invulnerability. The most useful of these tools is obviously the jetpack, which allows you to fly around the screen for as long as you don't take a hit, upon which you lose the jetpack and drop to the ground. Now fortunately, you can't get the jetpack back so long as it's within reach, but this is something that is essential to surviving and conquering Quartet's 6 stages of doom. Oh, and by the way, you also have to seek out these stars that enable what the game calls star power, which is what you need to access Quartet's final zone. There are 5 stars in the game, 1 in each round, and there's 6 rounds total in the game. Dave Meltzer still hasn't rated anything over 5 stars in 1987, so if by the end of the 5th round you only have 4 or less, then you're fucking off back to the stages where you skipped over those stars to try again. Once you've collected all 5 stars, then you get to the final stage, and you're already a far better wrestler than Kurt Angle, who never had 5 stars in his career. Nobody is going to get that. Quite honestly, nor should they. Star ratings are shit, people. Like what you like and leave the rest of us alone, for fuck's sake. Quartet's an interesting game of sorts. Seems like fairly basic platforming and shooting fare, but being a port of an arcade title, retains a high level of difficulty due to enemies spawning faster than you could say. As soon as you off one enemy and pick up their crystal, another takes their place almost immediately. Control is generally fine, save for the fact that the buttons are flipped, again. But you have a neat duck walk that's useful for sneaking under tight corners for picking up items and such. But on the flip side, the majority of the game was designed with jetpack use in mind. So your main deal would be getting that before tackling the bosses and getting their keys, and also seeking out those stars you need to access the final zone. Lots to do in this relatively short but tough game. Oh, by the way, did you know that if you press pause 14 times on the title screen before starting a new game, you get a wide beam? Actually quite helpful, especially in clearing away those rocks. That, along with a turbo controller with turbo fire functionality, makes the game and its respawning enemies a little bearable. Just a bit of a tip for you. Quartet sports some rather tiny sprites running amok in these rather colorfully garish yet clean-looking environments. It's that undeniable Master System charm that can only be appreciated by playing enough of these things after a while, and Quartet at the very least looks decent enough by the standards of the system and isn't plagued with much flicker or slowdown. Worth noting that the Japanese port of this thing, dubbed Double Target, has anime-looking characters, whereas in the Master System port, they've been drawn to more realistically proportioned caricatures. Not that it really matters in the long run, but something I assume some would find important, which it really isn't, but anyway. And then there's the audio, where you have a handful of arcade tracks converted to Master System standards, and look, I make no qualms about not being all that high on the Master System's overall sound output, but you do have some catchy tracks on here. And then there's some of the sound effects used in Quartet that are, quite frankly, dreadful. Particularly the death sound that plays when you die. That's just awful sounding. Overall, Quartet is a perfectly fine action game on Master System. More of a slower, deliberately paced shooting gallery with some mild exploration than a faster paced run and gun, but there's enough little bits and pieces that make it a somewhat engaging title, especially in a two-player environment. All in all, not bad. Not bad at all.